Updated metal coating C instructions. In this video, we're going to go over some of the changes that have happened to metal coating C recently. The starting prep is still the same. We're going to go over these hydrocal castings with our primate. This is the red color, and then for the second coat we used rust, and it doesn't have any rhyme or reason other than we had rust ready to go and I had used all the red. So the color of primer still doesn't matter. You can go with any color. It doesn't make a difference if you go with black, red, yellow, green. Doesn't make a difference because the metal coating will go over it completely. So prep is still the same as far as that goes. So we brushed on that first coat and then we had to spray out some other pieces. So we went ahead and sprayed this second coat. Has no difference how you apply it as long as you get it on there. And we go into more detail on the primate video on why you should use it and everything like that. But the metal coating still needs the primer to work best to protect the substrate before it. So when we're ready to do the metal coating, I actually like to strain the main portion of the metal coating before I mix in the catalyst and hardener. And so that's what we're going to do here. And I just give it a little shake, pour it through, and it catches all the big clumps of metal that have stuck together that are hard to mix in. And it's just as easy to pull them out. And the benefit of using the strainer like this is it actually filters through, and again, it just pulls out those bigger clumps. If you try to use an actual paint strainer, it's going to be super slow and overall not very effective. So I use these, it's kind of like a flour sifter you would use in the kitchen, and those work really well for me. Now, currently you would use the hardener first, and it's kind of a thicker solution, so you kind of have to push it out through the tube and just go nice and slow. And then you would use the catalyst. It's important to go in that order, but the catalyst is really runny in comparison. So you have to be really careful not to go too fast, otherwise little balls can form and it gets really hard to mix it in. So what we're doing to change is we have made it to where additional catalyst and hardener are no longer required. This has been something that we've been working on for a long time, and I personally haven't been using the catalyst and hardener in the C variant for a while. I just found that the metal coating C had so much metal in it that it didn't really need it in the first place. It really just polishes just as well without it. So not adding it does a couple different things. One, there's less prep to it, right? But the biggest thing I think is that we can use the C version and just use what you need. Currently, if you mix that catalyst and hardener in there, you have to use it. And there's a timeline on it. Typically, you've got about a working day, so you can usually get about 8 hours, maybe a little bit further out of there, especially if it's a cooler day. But once you mix that catalyst and hardener, you've got to use it or you lose it. And so that's a big detriment, especially with the C variant being more expensive than the B. We want to try and extend things as long as possible, but still offer a great product. And so that's what we have here is that the C variant just doesn't need that catalyst and hardener. So you can pour out what you need, use it, and then put it back in the container and it's ready to go another day. It works exactly the same. So we're going to show you some samples with. Here we're putting the Tiffany green over the bronze C. And normal process, 2 coats of bronze C. Then while that second coat of bronze C is still wet, we're putting on the Tiffany green. Now just to show comparison, there's the bronze C, and we're not going to use a catalyst and hardener in it. Same thing, straining it through that kitchen strainer, and then we're going to spray it out. I think it's also important to note that there is a big difference between the B and the C variant, even with these changes of not needing to use the catalyst and hardener. The B variant is a phenomenal product that oxidizes. It allows you to take something like this hydrocal or a piece of aluminum and make it look like a different piece of metal. It's phenomenal in that sense. And it can take a little bit of burnishing, but the C variant with all that extra metal is the reason why you can actually polish it. So the catalyst and hardener helped with all that early on, but as I mentioned, with these changes that we've got updated in it, it's not needed at all. And it polishes just as well. You can progress through the 1-aught, 2-aught, 3-aught, 4-aught, although personally, usually I'd go with the 2-aught and then 4-aught, or if I want a softer touch, I just do the 4-aught. It still does the exact same thing. So why would you go with the B over the C? Well, it just comes down to if you want to polish it. If you want it to look like this after the Tiffany green has reacted and you don't want to do anything extra, great. Just go with the B variant. That extra metal doesn't make the patina, react a whole lot more, or it doesn't make it look a certain difference. It's going to look very similar to if you use the B versus the C. The only thing you gain by going with the C is the ability to easily pull off and polish and bring up some of that shine with the metal coating. So here I'm just going with the 4/0 steel wool. And actually, one of the tricks that I like to do with the metal coating in general, I first started doing it with the B variant because I didn't want to scratch off and leave scratches when I was trying to pull some of that patina off. But one of the things that I really like to do is just take a wet paper towel and actually kind of wipe down the surface. And a lot of the times it just pulls off that loose dust. You can see where I hit it with that 4/0 steel wool in the sample, and a lot of it just kind of gets dusty and dirty, and I'm able to go in with that wet paper towel and just pull some of that excess off so I can see how much I have, because it's all in aesthetics, right? So if we pull some of that dust off, it relieves a little bit so we can see how much bronze we have coming through, and then we can determine, okay, I want to pull some more off, or actually this is pretty close to what I want. This also gives you a quick little glimpse. If you hit it with like a ClearGuard satin, it's more or less what you're going to get. It's kind of a loose rule, but it does give you a guide at least. So I do like the wet paper towel trick. I used to do it just on the B variant, but with the C variant as well, if I don't want to polish anymore, if I think I'm getting close, that's a really good trick to have. And unfortunately, I had Butterfingers here and accidentally dropped one of our smaller samples for the without. And so I went ahead and did another one just so we had a full comparison. And so the color on the Tiffany green is slightly different because I did them at different times of the day. And I wanted to include that small shrapnel still just so you guys could still see it. But that's why those two Tiffany greens look a little different, because they were done at completely opposite times of the day. One was done about noon, so when it was the hottest, and then one was done early in the morning, so that's why we got that vibrant kind of green. But I included it in here even though it still wasn't a full sample. I know there's a lot of mindset about not wanting to change anything, especially if it's worked for you for so long, and I completely understand that mentality. And I think it's important to note that these aren't new changes. These are things that we have been doing for a while now. But like I said, personally, I haven't been using the Catalyst and Hardener for a number of years now because I didn't find that benefit was all that worthwhile, and we weren't ready to make this step. But we've also had other customers. So a lot of people, I think, feel better knowing that it's been done for a while and that it's not just us saying that it's okay. We've told customers as well along the ways for one reason or another. We've had people who have spilt the Catalyst or the Hardener and so no longer have that, or they don't want to measure it out and get, they just want to use, a small amount of the C and how much Catalyst and how much Hardener do they need to add it. And so we've told them along the way that you don't need to actually use it. It works just fine without. And in every situation, it's worked for all of those people. We've had no one calling back and saying, oh, this isn't working, it ruined it. It's just as strong. So there's no worry in that front. It works completely fine. As usual, we like to finish things off with a clear coat. So I try and air hose these off to get all the debris off, especially if there's any loose patina, but more so for the steel wool. You want to get all that off. And so I usually just do a quick air hose and call it a day. But we're going to use the ClearGuard EF matte. And I'm going to go on a little heavier just to, it's going to darken the greens a little bit in comparison. But I just want the bronze tones to come through a little bit better. So I heavily coated the ClearGuard. If you go lighter, it definitely retains some of that lighter green. So if you're wanting to retain more of those lighter green patina looks, then go a little lighter and then burnish off a little less as well. That'll help. But I go a little heavier here to kind of bring out the bronze finishes a little bit more than the green finish there. So here's our final samples, and really what it comes down to is how you kind of burnish it, right? So it appears on some of them I had a heavier hand, some I had a lighter. That's why I did a couple different samples trying to show the differences and everything. But again, the amount of metal does not play a part as far as durability, longevity, or polish ability. It all works out just fine without the extra catalyst and hardener. Metal Coating C is available at www.sculptnouveau.com or by calling us at 760-432-8242.